So a lot of spouses on the autism spectrum have what I'm just going to call learned helplessness, and this phenomenon occurs when the autistic spouse comes to believe that he has little or no control over the relationship difficulties, and that whatever he does to try to change a bad situation is futile. So as a result, this discouraged spouse will stay passive in the face of any unpleasant, harmful, or damaging state of affairs, even when he actually does have the ability to improve his circumstances. Now, learned helplessness can be thought of as believing you are incompetent, that you have no control over the outcome, that it doesn't matter what you say or do, since outcomes no longer depend on actions, and that your actions are pointless. So, in order to qualify for this learned helplessness, the person on the spectrum really needs to have these three conditions in place. He has to become inappropriately passive, and this passivity has to follow exposure to numerous unresolved arguments with his spouse, and there is a change in the way this person thinks about his ability to control similar future marital conflict. The spouse on the spectrum with learned helplessness has certain rationalizations and self-talk that could go something like this. Adopting a passive stance provides me with a sense of control over my life circumstances. Beating my head against a brick wall wastes time and energy and is potentially harmful. Hope has its limits. Persistent attempts to control the uncontrollable are futile, and remaining passive allows me to conserve energy when the evidence tells me there is simply nothing else for me to do. So when a spouse on the spectrum feels like it doesn't matter what I say or do, it's never good enough, and my attempts to work on the relationship make the problems worse, this individual will tend to have an external locus of control. For example, he may say things to himself like, I have no control over what happens to me or what happens in this relationship. And he will tend to view unwanted outcomes as permanent. For example, because we couldn't resolve the most recent conflict, therefore we probably won't be able to resolve any conflicts. So we could say that this individual is easily discouraged and somewhat pessimistic. And so he will tend to highlight and emphasize risks. He will highlight problems, is likely to suffer anxiety and depression, is overly concerned with safety, and currently does not feel safe in the relationship, is often very passive, which would take the form of shutdowns. He will tend to promote caution, critical thinking, skepticism, and defensive measures. He will recover slowly after an argument, if at all, and quite honestly, he simply feels defeated and stops trying. So this individual needs to realize that there is this other thing called an internal locus of control, which is I do have control over circumstances. I can't control everything, but I can control me. I can control my responses. I do have some ability and power in this relationship. And he also needs to understand that the vast majority of things are not permanent. Rather, they are temporary.